there, guys. I thought it would be useful to have a look at a few different camera angles of the much talked about incident from last night's Porsche Cup race at Monza. Um, Certainly not trying to point the finger at anybody. It's just interesting to try and understand what happened. Um, I did watch the short sort of 30-second YouTube video that somebody stuck up last night. And whilst it's very obvious that there was a couple of cars in a place where they really shouldn't have been, which contributed heavily to the chicane pile-up, I really wanted to understand what happened between Jeremy and Mr. Noritas. I couldn't really see that from that little YouTube video, so I thought I'd get two or three camera angles and slow it right down and just try and sort of understand what went on, and hopefully it might help others understand, and it might generate some positive discussion for us guys going forward, just for these kind of incidents. So here's Mr. Noritas just crossing the checkered start-finish line, and what's good about this view, that this is the FreeCam F7 view. I obviously got it right as dead centre as I can above his car. What's interesting about this view is eventually there's a couple of white lines on the circuit which come into play, which are very useful from this camera angle. It allows us to see the trajectory of cars and whether they are deviating from their line, albeit in minute amounts, left or right. So we can't see Jeremy yet, he's just a wee bit ahead. He will start to appear in the top right, but let's just slowly move this forward at the slowest speed I can, 0.125, until we get to these white lines. It doesn't look like Mr. Noritas is moving around a lot here. You can see the gap to this car on his left is fairly consistent, and just as the pit lane kind of merges into the circuit is where we get these white lines that are going to help us a lot. So here we go. Okay, so again we can't see Jeremy at the moment, but we have a white line now beside Mr. Noritas's car, and so we can look at the gap here. And let's just get Jeremy into picture. He's about to come in. So you can see this gap now. Just as Jeremy's about to appear, you can see what the gap is between the side of the car and the white line. Okay, at the front and at the rear. So it's all looking pretty consistent to me at the moment. And we're just waiting for Jeremy to... Now here's the shadow just coming in of his car. So there we go. So now we can see distances. So it's a little bit less here. If anything, Mr. Noritas has actually moved to the left. A little bit more than just a fraction of a second ago, because the gap is narrower between his front bodywork and the white line, and we can see how the gap looks between Jeremy and the white line that he's got on his right hand side. So let's just move it forward. Now if anything, Mr. Noritas is closing on the white line, which to me says he is turning ever so slightly to the left. Now why he's doing that, only he can answer, but one or two things. He's either seeing that Jeremy is also starting to move a little bit to the left, and he's thinking, well, if I stay on this trajectory, I'm going to hit him, so I'm going to start moving ever so slightly over. Or he's just seen a gap up here, and he's thought, well, I'm going to go for that gap. But this distance is definitely getting smaller. This looks fairly static again. It might be a little bit more. I can't quite tell. So let's just move it on. Now you see that the bodywork now is touching the white line. Before you could see the grey of the circuit. You can't see it now. Again, that tells me he's moving over to the left. Bodywork's over the white line now, so he's definitely moving left. So I think it's a little unfair for anyone to say he deviated from his line and turned in on Jeremy. This view seems to suggest the opposite. He is moving over to the left. And on first look, I think this gap is a little bit bigger. So I can't really tell until I look in Jeremy's car at the steering wheel, but I think, maybe even unconsciously, he's turned his steering wheel just a millimetre or so, and he is maybe coming over to the left, and Mr. Noritas is reacting to that. Now, maybe Jeremy's seen what's going on behind him with Michelle and the other car and how they're going to run out of tarmac and it's grass, and he's thinking, I don't want to get caught up in that. So he's starting to move over, but there's absolutely no doubt, in my mind anyway, that this car of Mr. Noritas is turning left. So let's keep going. We've not made contact yet, and the white line is fully obscured by the front of the car, Mr. Noritas' car. So I don't think we can be any doubt that he is slightly turning left there, unless the white line's not straight, or there's a slight kink in the road. I don't think there is, though. And to me, there's a bigger gap here, and unfortunately, contact's about to be made. Bodywork fully over the white line now. See, the bodywork of that car is into the grey of the circuit. And contact made once, which starts rotating Jeremy's back end anti-clockwise, which means his front end's going to come round and make contact again. And there we go. But you can see how far over the white line this car is now. So contact again, unfortunately, which takes both of them out. So that's an interesting camera angle to start with. Okay, so here's another view, again using the free camera f7 directly above, but from the front of Jeremy's car. So again, we can use these white lines either side of Jeremy's car and Mr. Noritas' car to kind of gauge, I would hope, whether there's any deviations of the line. And we can also keep an eye on the mayhem that's going to go on behind here with Michelle and the other guy. Although the guy behind Michelle, I'm not sure who that is, and the kind of red and blue one, he is starting to come back onto what I would call the proper circuit. This blue car beside Michelle has done exactly the right thing. He's stuck in his racing line right down through the rolling start, and he's doing everything correctly to me. I think round about now, Michelle is starting to think to himself, oh dear, I don't think I want to be here. I think I want to get back into this lane here. And of course the chap in the blue car is saying, well, that's not my problem. My friend, as we say in Scotland, not my problem, pal. That's you got yourself into a situation of your own making there, so I'm not moving. So let's see how this pans out with the white lines and everything, again at slow speed. So we can see the gap here, quite significant gap between the white line and Jeremy's car, and we can see how close Mr. Noritas is to his white line. So let's just let this play out. So I would say, looking at where the mirror is, just about to clip the white line of Jeremy's car, gives us a good indication. Pretty static down here now. Yeah, pretty static now. There's a little gap starting to open up. This gap looks fairly static between the front of Mr. Noritas' car and the white line. Let's keep going. Now there's definitely more of a gap here. See that between the mirror and the edge of the white line, and you can really see Michelle behind now saying, "Please move over. I'm going to run out of road." And the chap in the blue car saying, "Nope, I'm in the right place. You're in the wrong place." Tough shit. So let's just let this play. Now, if you look at the shadow coming out from Mr. Noritas' car, you know, it's starting to edge over the white line. So again, it suggests to me that he is turning left, possibly reacting to seeing some movement from Jeremy's car, who is definitely turning left as well. We can see that from this white line. I won't know until we see the steering wheel movement in his car, but so you can see this shadow is really getting over this white line now. I would say the front tyre is on the white line as well. Still the gap here. Yeah, and even more. See, right, that tyre's definitely over that white line now. And there's a little bit more of a gap here between Jeremy's wing mirror and the white line. Just a tiny bit, just a tiny bit. And Michelle really wants over to that. So the first contact's made about here. You can see the shadow is encroaching onto the grey of this lane now, which it wasn't before, which again suggests that this car number 16 is turning to the left. See how much the shadow is over there. And then contact made. First contact anyway. And here's Michelle about to run out of circuit. Here's the grass coming into play. And again, quite rightly, I'm afraid, this chap in the blue car is saying, well, tough, you know, that's not my problem. So first contact's made. You can see the front of Jeremy's car starting to rotate round anti-clockwise with the rear following it. So the front of his car is going to rotate again for a second impact into Mr. Noritas. And here it goes. Bang. Now Michelle is on the grass, although it looks like he might just have these two tyres on the white stuff. I'm not quite sure, but anyway, Mr. Noritas and Jeremy sent into a spin. Here's the inevitable coming. It does look like Michelle was getting back on the circuit there, but it was not to be. There we go. So let's try a third and final camera angle from inside Jeremy's car so we can see the steering wheel. Right, so here we are, again the free camera, so we can see the wheel and we can see the wing mirror with Mr. Noritas coming up. So again, let's just watch for any sort of play in the wheel from this point on. So a slight movement to the right there, then the left, just very slight. And then starting to turn to the right. I think Jeremy can maybe see what's happening here, and he's trying to take evasive action. And the contact. So, I mean, that's quite inconclusive with the steering wheel, though, isn't it? I didn't see too much movement going on there. I just maybe have to put it down to the old racing incident. But it's useful to see these different angles, and hopefully, as I say, I'm not trying to point the finger at anybody. I'm just trying to understand what happened, and it's useful to dissect these things, and maybe it will generate some constructive conversation, so as we can avoid things like this in the future. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comments, chaps. It's very interesting anyway. Cheers for now.